Hello, my name is Ilona, and in this video I want to talk about spiritual narcissism. Narcissism, yes, I think that's the correct term. Someone with narcissistic tendencies and just showing narcissism usually feels superior. They are very insecure, but they need outside validation. So they try to make themselves more interesting than they really are. They're kind of blowing themselves up, so to speak, energetically. You also have the covert narcissism, and that means that someone is actually also somewhere feeling superior, but they are the opposite. They don't show themselves, but they completely, are in this victim mentality, like, oh, everything that's happening to me, I need help. Can you help me? This is happening to me. And they just want to use their situation, so things that are happening to them, because they're the victim, they just want to use that to manipulate people. And that's ultimately what narcissism is about, is manipulation of people around them. So it's also possible with covert narcissism. Those are the people that really all complain all the time, but they are not fixing anything. They just want to stay where they are. They are the perpetual victim, and they need care, and that's really what that is about. But I'm really going to look at spiritual narcissism. That is like narcissistic tendencies when you're out in the spiritual world. Unfortunately, when you know about awareness, you can maybe join workshops, or maybe even contacts that you have, friendships that you have with people that seem very spiritual and very aware. It can be quite shocking when you encounter this. So I just want to talk about some red flags. First three things this person mentioned is the separation and the dividing things. So someone with narcissistic tendencies has the tendency of dividing people, keeping people separate, and creating this duality. That's really what this is about. It's the validation outside of themselves because they don't have any basis at all. They are extremely insecure, but they don't want to work with that. They don't want to feel their pain, so they're completely focused on the outside world, and everyone else has to do what they want you to do. They need validations. They need people that will give them that energy to keep them going. In a way, it's very about the dark energies as well, of course, lifting on the people with the energy, and it's a similar situation. They need outside validation, so they need all the energy from the people near them in their surroundings. So she actually, I think it was a woman that pointed this out, that she made a few points, and I find that very interesting. First of all, the one with narcissistic tendencies or spiritual narcissism will talk about themselves. They're only interested in themselves, and really they're not really focused on you. It's sometimes with a covert narcissist or someone who wants to manipulate that they will listen to you, but they will just use it as ammunition to ammo to kind of use it to manipulate you. But they are not truly interested in what you have to say. They're basically just focused on themselves because they need that attention. So they will only talk about themselves. It's also possible, especially when you join certain groups, like these spiritual groups, or you're talking about spiritual things, that when there is someone leading it that has narcissistic tendencies or is a narcissist, that if you start, becoming very honest and maybe a little bit critical, well, what about this? Maybe we can look at it this, that you will be thrown out of the group. And that can be very painful because a lot of us have experienced being, rejected by our families, by how we were living our lives. A lot of us have been bullied at school. I was, and it's really, experiencing all those things and being rejected, and that can be very, very tough to deal with. So, especially in those groups, but to be very honest, if that happens, you should be very happy because apparently you don't really fit in that group. If there isn't an open dialogue and you can't really communicate with people openly about what is, what's bothering you, or you're like, what is going on here, and you're not allowed to talk about that, then that really is saying a lot. But it can be very painful, and especially people that are, in spiritual world, you want this connection, you want this openness, and then it can be very, very painful when you're thrown out of a group again. But like I've mentioned, usually means that you're very honest and that you actually want to learn and see things differently. It's also possible, if you have a very open group, that if someone joins that has narcissistic tendencies, that they will be rejected from that group because they will try to take over the entire group. So if there is one person only speaking, only talking, and you'll have to watch out with also talking to people, if they take over everything, you also have to, if you're part of a group, protect that group, because it's not really about that one person. So that's also a possibility. Let's see, the third thing, very important, and I've mentioned this before in other videos as well. If the negative is completely ignored, only think about the positive and only focus on the positive, because then that will grow. So don't mention the negative, just pretend it's not there, and then it will all go away. To be very honest, I am completely from the opposite opinion, that you should look at the negative things, but not to feed it, but to heal it. And that's a completely different energy. When I'm talking about working through your shadow side, your shadow work, I'm talking about painful memories, anger, frustration, fear that you may still carry with you. It's very important to feel through those things and to accept them. You're not growing them. You grow something when you kind of ignore it, or you start to, oh, this is going to be awful. You kind of attached all kinds of thoughts to it as well. And you just get more and more fearful because it's going to be awful. You don't know how to get out of this. You're not feeling the fear. You're kind of just moving above it. And you're creating just more fear for yourself. And then, of course, you're creating more. You're feeding it. But if you're truly healing it by accepting it and feeling through it, then you don't have to worry about that. Because once it's healed, it's not in your energy anymore. You won't have to attract that situation or those people matching that energy anymore. So it's very important in my eyes to focus on, of course, the positive, but also the negative. It's about balance. So not just the positive. If you're not allowed to talk about any negative or bring up anything that could be connected to that, usually means that the people are not interested in bringing balance. So that's something very important. The fourth point, and that's also very important, if someone in a group or someone you're watching or whatever really has this attitude that they have the knowledge and they are the only one that have this knowledge, and you're not allowed to really interpret that knowledge or do something with it yourself, you just have to accept what that person is saying. Unfortunately, that is something that I have encountered myself as well. And then I'm like, yeah, I don't want to have anything to do with someone like that. I usually run, because someone who is only focused in thinking that they have the knowledge, maybe they do. It's possible that they have that knowledge, but if someone is really truly spiritual or aware, they will keep it open. They will not place themselves above you, because no one is above you and no one is beneath you. So they will just share their knowledge. This is what I know. See what you can do with it, and leave it at that. And they are open to talk about it, to hear your side of the things and how you see things. And they're open for that. So if they're not open for that, if they're only focused on themselves, doesn't necessarily mean that that person is narcissistic or has narcissistic tendencies, but they do have ego going on there, very strong, because apparently they're placing themselves above someone else. Because if you claim you are the only one with that knowledge and you're the only one who can do this or do that, it's usually connected to ego and, well, narcissistic tendencies, of course, kind of just, that's very close to, of course, ego things. So let's see. Also the tendency to make other people ridiculous that are not in the group or not talking this way. Of Of course, we have that with the sleeper, so called the sheep cult. I try to avoid that because obviously if you talk to people who are, taking these things and things like that, look at us like we are the weird ones. So I'm always like, well, I understand their perspective as well. I don't agree with it, but it is their choice. And if you're in a group of people, especially also with the cults and things like that, they use jargon. They use certain words that are completely separate from others, purposely to make you feel like you're in this exclusive club. Well, as soon as that happens, again, run, because that means that they are not connected to anyone anymore and they feel better than others. And usually that has to do with ego, because why do you want to do that? There's nothing wrong with keeping, your own group and talking amongst yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're completely closed off and you look at other people like they're beneath you, then again, this kind of just, it has to do with ego. It has to do with narcissistic tendencies. Another thing is moralizing, like it's all your own fault. It's really something that not just spiritual narcissists, but also people in your life can use, is that it's always your fault. They like gaslighting people. So if you do have some criticism or talk to them like, well, what's going on is why you're saying this, it always has to do with you. It's your issue, your problem. You need to deal with that. That's clearly someone, that doesn't have to be in spiritual groups, but just maybe even context, relationships, friendships. If that happens, move away from them, because usually they are not interested in you at all. We also have immoral behavior, and that mostly has to do with that they preach one thing, but they do another thing, and it's very, very important. And not just in groups or meeting people, but just in relationships with family, with workers. So this is bigger than this, than just the spiritual narcissism in a way. Of course, also in friendships, you can have people that are very spiritual or claim to be very spiritual. But it's really important just in even your relationship that what someone does, says, also that they're doing that. If they don't, you have to deal with their behavior. You have to look at their behavior, not what they're saying. It's possible someone, maybe your partner, is awful and is suddenly explodes and is angry, and then he's very remorseful, he or she, oh, this is awful, should have never done that. Week further, 2 weeks, the same situation. Again, sorry, shouldn't have done that. 3-4 weeks later, again, and it continues. That's a behavior, and if someone is willing to change, then you will see that within a month or 2 months. You don't have to wait years for someone to change. It means someone is not going to change. No matter how sorry they are, no matter how much they say they want to change, if they want to change, they will change, or they will take steps to get help to change. But you have to deal with their behavior. Very important, because that's really what you're confronted with. Don't listen to what someone says. See what they do. And you can of course see that on a broader scale with politicians, with people around you, and just in the just everywhere. What do they say and what do they do? Is there a difference there? Because the more people are in line, so they say and they do the same thing, the more authentic they are. And that's really someone you want to be around, is authentic, that they say what they do and they do what they say. It's so important. If it doesn't match, that's just not good. Red flag. And the last one this person mentioned, I think that's also very important, and maybe I've already mentioned that in this video, is manipulating people through spirituality. So if they bring up something, well, it's because of what happened to your father. This has to do with you, or this has to do with your mother. Yeah, this has nothing to do with me. You need to work it out first and then you can get back. That not only is that very patronizing, so they don't even see you as an equal, like there's not even an open conversation there. Someone who's truly aware and really want to learn, they will just talk to you. Okay, what's your feeling? What is happening here? All right, I'll look at my share of what is happening here. I'll look at your share. They will not flat out say, yeah, that's all your fault. You need to deal with it. Bye. That's just ego, and that's really narcissistic tendencies, and really you can't do very much with that. So that's also a way of manipulating, and ultimately it comes down to manipulating. We are here in the Great Awakening. We are here to becoming aware of ourselves, look at ourselves, and really make our own decisions. We don't need anyone to tell us what to think, what to wear, what to do. We don't really need that at all. We need to make our own decisions. There's nothing wrong reading things or talking to people, sharing things, exchanging things, but ultimately you are the one to decide how you want to live your life. And if you encounter any of these red flags, run. Just move on and focus on yourself and your own path. I'd like to leave it at this. Hope to see you in another video. Bye.